That is what YouTube gives you when you reach 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Now, I'm actually a lot more than that. I think I'm at something like 100 and it's over 120,000 at the time of recording this video. But it takes a while for YouTube to send that creator reward or whatever it's called out once you qualify for it, and you have to give them your details and they have to ship it from who knows where. I don't know, YouTube headquarters. So now that my channel's reached 100,000, I thought I'll maybe just talk a little bit about the concept behind what I wanted to do with this channel, how things have changed this year over the years, and then where maybe I see it going in the future. So the origin of this particular YouTube channel was actually, like a lot of people, I just made a YouTube account purely so I could use YouTube as an actual user, because a lot of people may not know this. Okay, so I'll explain this. Obviously, everyone who's subscribed understands the concept. But for many, many years, I used YouTube just as a random person. I never logged into anything. I just went to videos. People linked me an interesting video. I went and watched it. And if you do that, back then, it's true, a lot of the features and functionality that they built in that helps the users now wasn't there. So you weren't really losing that much back in the day. But ever since I became a user, I think I made this YouTube channel in like 2009. They've added a lot of functionality in that you don't get if you're not a user elsewhere. So for example, when you are logged in and you watch a video, I mean, one of the great features I think they added more recently was where if you're watching like a 2-hour-long Joe Rogan type podcast video or whatever, if you quit out of the video and you go off and watch something else, when you come back to watch that video again, it'll actually find where you were within the episode and just resume from that point onwards. That's great functionality. It really stops like the annoying thing. It's the equivalent of a bookmark. You know, if you're reading a book and you don't have a bookmark, if you don't read it for 3 weeks, you're going to forget exactly where you were. You know, roughly, but you might end up having to read a section again, or you'll skip a section. So that's great functionality. But more importantly, being a YouTube subscriber, the best feature, being a YouTube user rather, is the ability to subscribe to channels. Because it's okay if you're only following a couple of channels, no problem. You can go back there whenever you want. But if you actually have subscribed to a whole bunch of channels that you enjoy, then all you do each day is go to YouTube and go to the subscriptions page, and then you see all the new videos that are from the channels you subscribe to. So it means you don't have to remember 3 months from now, oh, I wonder what that guy's up to and how many videos he did. You can just keep track of it day by day, and you'll have this feed of all the cool content you like. And so that's one of the things that's turned things around in terms of YouTube, especially my own experience using it, because I use that for a lot of the channels. I like philosophy videos or podcasts, these sorts of things. And so I keep a track of them just by using the subscription feature on YouTube myself. So I know it's a great feature, and I actually think a lot of the functionality that's built into YouTube now is excellent, considering there was a period in time when they took away some of the buffering issues in the past. There was times when I thought the functionality, the actual service had gone down a bit, but I liked some of the new stuff. So anyway, the original reason I had the channel actually was just myself to become a user and to be able to subscribe to other people's videos and to watch them. And even though I had the channel since 2009, I barely did anything with it until about 2012. And what happened was I left my position as the editor-in-chief of SK Gaming, where I'd been for something like, I think I'd been there about 2.5 years, maybe a bit over 2.5 years actually. And I went away and I joined a site called Team Acer. It's another esports team. Famously, they had Scarlet, the StarCraft 2 player, Nurchio. They actually had some League of Legends people. They had Amazing from TSM, and they had Citizen Wayne. And when I joined up with this team, I started to do what's called the Grilled series. This is when I actually innovated this concept. And when I did this before, when I'd been in SK Gaming, they had a one-on-one feature, which had been started years before, but I'd kind of put my own twist on it, like made it more long form, going in depth about all aspects, like a career retrospective, asking people questions about things that I had quoted that they'd said in interviews. I started to develop this concept, what is obviously now known as Reflections. But when I made the concept of Grilled, I made it for Team Acer. At the time, they were a site where the only real way they were going to get traffic for stuff like that was if it was in League of Legends or StarCraft 2, and that was if it went onto Reddit and had success there. So all the League of Legends and StarCraft 2 stuff, I put onto their channel. They got all the hits for it. They got very good stuff from some of the League of Legends Reddit ones, for example. That's why I got more involved in that game. But all the stuff that was like Counter-Strike or Quake, there was never going to be any interest in that. At the time, the Counter-Strike Reddits were incredibly small. You would barely get any traffic from it. And some of these were old players I was using, not global offensives at the time, that would get removed by mods. And so for these small games, I just thought, you know what, I'll just put them on my own YouTube channel. Not only will that mean it doesn't mess with the subscribers of the Team Acer one, who are mainly going to be League of Legends, StarCraft 2, not going to give a fuck about an old Quake player, but then I can just link to them on community sites for Counter-Strike and Quake, and then people who are interested in that will just see it on my channel. So if you go back and watch the oldest stuff on my channel, it is like interviews with Spawn and Potty, these sorts of people, where it's not really anything to do with the more modern day esports, at least at the time. So I started just to do that. And interestingly enough, back then, I didn't even understand monetization concepts, etc., because I'd never been involved with that sort of thing. I was more on the editorial side of thing. I didn't know how the YouTube mechanics worked in terms of monetizing things. So actually, those early videos, I didn't monetize at all. Never got anything for them. I wouldn't have gotten that much. I would have maybe, for all of them combined at the time, gotten a couple of $100. So I guess back then that would have been decent, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world. So it's not a big deal that I never looked into it. Then what happened is I was fired from OnGamers, which was a site that I'd worked for about... I think I'd worked there almost 12 months actually. It was early October I got fired, and I joined on like the 1st of November of 2013, and it was early October 2014 when I was fired over making a comment about a League of Legends player. Standard sort of jokes on Twitter, but people took offense to it because I used the word retard. But it's a word to this day I'll never remove from my vocabulary. You can be sure of that. But anyway, okay, fair enough. That's not a decision. It's actually not a decision the company themselves were involved in. I can't go into too many details because you do sign NDAs on this stuff, but people higher above them were somehow word got to them, and they were the ones who kind of like put the kibosh on that sort of thing. So anyway, once I left OnGamers, when I was OnGamers, essentially I was just everything I worked for, I gave to OnGamers. It was under their brands. They owned all the aspects. They would publish all the shit. But when I left OnGamers, suddenly I wasn't working for anyone, and actually I was kind of in a transition period. Like luckily, since I've lived in periods of scarcity in esports, I've saved up most of my salary at OnGamers, which is a pretty good salary, the best I'd ever had at that point in time. I saved up some of it so that I had a little backlog of money, so that I wasn't just going to go bust immediately. I could afford to wait a few months and kind of see all my options, because lots of different companies were coming to me, lots of different people, and as they were asking me like, oh, do you want to work with us, or do this, or this is what we envision you doing, as I was figuring it all out, I thought, you know what, I'll go freelance for a little bit. For like a month or two, I'll try out freelance, see what makes sense. Then maybe in doing freelance for some of these companies, I'll find out which one I want to work with more in depth, or find out if I even do want to join a company full time again. And also, I want to see how freelance stuff would go. Now, as it happened, I'm still freelance to this day. It turned out that I managed to get enough deals with enough different sites to sell my writing, and then built up the video side that I now have enough to have a stable living, the best living I've ever had in esports, a very good salary actually in comparison to what I used to make before. Because it's not technically a salary because I'm making different amounts freelance, but one of the key areas of that was, initially, the YouTube channel was just going to be the thought that, okay, some of this stuff I could sell at like an okay amount to sites, and they'll put it on their YouTube channel and monetize it. But the problem with that is I'll be left in the position I was in when I was at Team Acer, when I was at SK Gaming, which is I got all these videos, I made all these in-depth videos, but then I put them on their channels that they can monetize, and they own the channels. So essentially, I've never built up my own personal brand. Yeah, people know my brand, they know who I am, but they're going to know me and then follow me on the sites I'm on. At this point in time, in the Reddit era and the Twitter era, and how you promote in the modern day, I didn't need to be on a big site to get people to see my work. People would see my work, and then in the cases of people like OnGamers or previously, more so Team Acer, etc., they're going to go to Team Acer purely because they're seeing my work on Reddit or somewhere else, and that's how they're going to get to that site. It's the other way around. I'm bringing the traffic to the person I'm for now. The old school method you have to realize of being a journalist is, part of it is you don't get heard, you don't have the platform unless you have the publication who gives you the platform. It's the other way around. I'm giving the platform for my own work over to these companies, and then they're incorporating it within their brand, and I'm just a sub brand of them, like a repackaging of them. Whereas I wanted it to be where, okay, I'll sell my written work to sites, because again, that needs to be published that way, and that's how I'm going to make money off them, what it's worth. But the videos, I'm going to make that my own branding. So that's what I started doing. This channel was going to be where all my videos go on this channel, except the ones I do with Monte Cristo, so that goes on the Insight on Esports channel, like Summoning Insight. But all my own personal stuff goes on this channel. And ever since then, that's what I've done, ever since October of 2014. That's what I've done on this channel, and I've branded it myself. And actually, amazingly, in the early days, so back in October last year, I got it so that I was making, the majority of my income was all coming from written work, and I was making a tiny bit from monetization of these videos that I do on this channel, Thorin's Thoughts, Reflections, but it wasn't that much. Like, it wasn't like a crazy money. You certainly couldn't live off it. So I thought, whatever, that'll just be mine, I'll own it, and I'll do mainly the written work for money, and then CSGO analysis things picked up. Oh no. Pardon me. Obviously, I'm going to do those as well to make like an okay percentage of my money. Now, as it's turned out now, actually video content overall, my own on this channel, on Insight and Esports, and the Alpha Draft sponsorship, which covers all my video stuff, now accounts for a decent amount of my income. Not the maximum amount, not like a total majority, but it's pretty big amount now. So actually, the branding aspect worked in that sense. I've been able to build my own brand in that particular respect. So one of the things I started out doing on this channel when I was doing the freelance stuff was, yes, I was going to do more reflections. I've done them. You see, I've had periods where I haven't done so many, but I've started picking up more now. I do them all on Skype. I'm certainly going to continue that. It's one of my favorite things to do. But I also started what obviously people who are watching this now are aware of, which is the main thing that's built my subscriber base, which is Thorin's Thoughts. So the way that started was when I had left Team Acer, I thought to myself the whole time that there has to be a way to do videos which are short videos, short in the context that they're not 2-hour long reflections, but that are just talking about certain topics. So here's the thing. There have now been, at the time of this recording, 215 episodes. This is the 216th. Well, it depends if I get published now. Probably won't. 215 episodes of Thorin's Thoughts within the span of about almost 13 months. The first one was on October 27th. It was about the inconsistency of the Hellraisers CSGO team, who, interestingly enough, have actually never at major events ever gone on to win. So that's kind of what it was a good starting place. It was a topic I'd been thinking about for a while. And then I did one about Dignitas and the fact that prior to Kerrigan, because they didn't have Kerrigan at the time, they had the Fetish, like they were a team that seemed to be going nowhere and would always have the same issues. So these were some of the topics that had been most prescient on my mind and I'd always been thinking about. So that's why they probably do set the tone as some of my good thoughts, in terms of some of them have shown to be productive or prescient in some senses, or in some way predictive of what might happen. Now, one of the interesting things is, even though I didn't directly take my inspiration from this, one of the things that had made me think about this was when I used to watch shows in the past, like occasionally I'd watch State of the Game in StarCraft 2, or outside of esports, there was the show that Russell Brand did called The Trues, which was like the equivalent of the True News, it was supposed to be, where he just talked about topical things and he'd read the paper and he'd talk about whatever big scandal was going on or some political shit. And the idea was, in reality, it was a bit, I guess he was being a bit bawdy. It's a bit ridiculous to call it The True News. Obviously, it's his opinion and his perspective. But the idea was, if you thought Russell Brand's a funny guy and you think he's a guy who's an intelligent guy, then you were getting his perspective on things. He'd be giving you the official media perspective on certain aspects, and then he'd be giving his thoughts on it and trying to cut through some of the bullshit or read between the lines or explain, like translate for people what it meant. Now, that concept had always been present with me in esports. It's something I tried to do occasionally on Twitter. That's one of the reasons why people think I'm like super edgy a lot of times. I do fuck with people. I like to play the trickster role. But one of the things I've always liked to do on Twitter is the idea that in an official source, like on a website, if you're writing as a news person, unless you're doing an editorial where it's going to be about your opinion, if you're just publishing the news, you're going to have to keep it just fact-based and link facts to facts and put here's the order of things happen chronologically and then here's a quote from someone. In general, you're not going to insert a lot of opinion, just pure news. And it's editorial, you can talk whatever you want. But the problem is, a lot of the news, the way official things worked, would give a drastically distorted perspective from things that behind the scenes people like me knew were going on, or just from looking at the perspective of history and knowing the routine and rhythm of what happens in the past and what something means. Like when there's this famous political saying, okay, that whatever a politician says, assume or try and imagine in your mind that the opposite is the case, and that the reason he's explaining it this way is to distract you from the fact it's the opposite. Now, that's a bit of a ridiculous, like hard line contrarian approach, but the point there is to think more about what's being said, not just accept it at face value, which you should do with everything, but particularly stuff like political speech, because obviously they've got such a penchant for lying or misdirection or trying to do damage control or make you think something's positive when actually it's going to all be a sum negative for them. It's almost like some George Orwell 1984 shit. So obviously you should be extra alert when that's going on. Well, the thing is, in esports, I noticed that oftentimes I would see things, and even if I wasn't involved, in a lot of these cases I'm not involved directly, I don't have secret information, but just knowing the history of esports and a lot of the factors and principles behind why things work a certain way, I can see that this line this guy is giving here is bullshit. Like, this team doesn't make that much salary, or this team over here, they're saying this player retired just for school or something, but it's clear that he was kicked, actually, if you know the history of these players, and that they wanted to bring in another player anyway, and it had nothing to do with whether he wants to retire now. I would see all this and I would think, if only there was a way to get it out there to the people, and so, or just have my opinions expressed, have a platform for it. And so one of the things about the Trues was it did make me think, oh, it'd be cool if someone could do something like that for esports. Now, I never thought directly, right, I'll do that and I'll be the person and I'll have my own live news show like thing. I never really did it that way. The way I developed this concept, the Thorin's Thoughts idea, and in general a lot of the stuff I've done on this channel, is I actually thought to myself, I want to be more productive in terms of the work I do in esports. Because at the time, a lot of my work, I'd stopped even doing news stuff. I'd managed to get all my long form content super popular in respect to its own niche, as in it got a lot of views, and also get it to the level where it was pretty good. Like, that was one of the things I did the best. Long written articles, historical articles of people's careers and team retrospectives, or long in-depth interviews. But you can only do so many of those. They'll burn you out. They're incredibly intensive in terms of the research, and you can only actually publish so many of them. I think maximum you could maybe, even if you went ham, maybe publish like 3 or 4 a week, and you wouldn't be able to do much other work. So I have lots of ideas all the time about esports, about topical things, about larger scale things, about general abstract concepts, about very specific policy and rule changes. So how do I get all that stuff out there? Sure, I could write it all down, but again, writing takes longer to some degree. You have to think more. You have to put more purpose into how you construct something. It takes a lot more skill actually to get words across very well in the medium of writing, because it's capable of so much more than reading, than video rather, and kind of like the. I realize this isn't actually the way McLuhan described it, but the hot medium of video where you're just talking and it doesn't matter how superbly you articulate something, it's just getting a thought out and the person hearing it, and there's some kind of interaction between the viewer and the person speaking. More so than when you write something, you're trying to be very precise with language and economical and effective and produce a certain effect upon the person, and a level of artistry in terms of how you all craft it all together and weave the different aspects together. And then subtext and metaphor that you can add in there in order to create an extra picture, an extra layer of meaning and significance to something you write. So I thought, right, a great way to do this is, rather than waste some of these smaller ideas that either I can't make into long pieces or decently long pieces, or it wouldn't make sense to publish on certain areas because they wouldn't get many direct hits, or I wouldn't even have the time to make into that sort of thing. Instead, I'll make what are essentially going to be video editorials. And that's what essentially this channel started out as. So those first two topics, those two Counter-Strike topics, were ones where, yeah, those were things that I'd been thinking about in Counter-Strike. Then I did a League of Legends one quite early. I think the League of Legends one was the second one, actually. It was about Link, the missing Link, or something along those lines. It was about the fact that he used to go missing in games. Another thing that obviously turned out to be true to some degree. I mean, not really true, just my perception seems reasonably accurate to what actually happened if you look at the way that events unfolded. So again, another aspect where it was sort of a video editorial on either a super topical issue or something I thought had relevance to the moment and would for the future. So I started to do these little video editorials, and there were so many things I just felt really strongly about or had thought about and constructed a lot of thoughts for. And what I realized quite quickly was that, first of all, it's a lot of fun to do them. You can do them quite quickly. They might take 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You just think about what your top ideas are going to be. Think about roughly an idea of how like some of the thoughts might go. Construct it in your own mind. Start filming, start recording. You notice there's not many edits, etc. And it's just going to be, the idea is, it's not going to be about trying to be the most true or accurate. These things are kind of ridiculous notions when you're talking about opinion. It's not really fact-based. There aren't so many facts you're doing. You're getting the facts, then you're giving your opinion of them and how you think they fit together. The key thing to me was that I learned through doing this process that on most topical issues, as long as I care to some degree, I can always give you a coherent, consistent, thought out perspective, which is informed by the information at hand, but also my life experiences and the philosophies and ways I've developed my own mind, and so push through my reality tunnel of Thorin, whoever that is, or whoever I choose to show it is on these particular videos. And that's what you're going to get, this perspective. And the idea is, it doesn't matter if you agree or whether you think that this fact was misinterpreted in this way. We can all do that with anyone that's giving their opinion. But the idea is, whenever you come along, there's going to be a consistency to it. And the thought processes are going to be articulated as I'm going along, which is something you notice I always put stress on, is explaining why I think a certain way, not what I think, but I explain why I think a certain way and how I think about it at times, in terms of that's how I construct it. That's why also they're sometimes long, because I have a certain structure I'm trying to build out so that you can see how I got from this place to this place to this place, and I brought something in from the side, and that melded together in some kind of alchemy of thought and expressed this particular idea over here, rather than just going straight to that idea. And if you don't agree or you don't understand any of the processes, it would seem too abstract, it would seem too far away. That's why I have all the analogies. I often use sports or I use more esoteric aspects. And so the interesting thing is, when I first started doing the Thorin's Thought stuff, I didn't plan to do a lot. I thought I'd do them every now and then like you do an editorial, but it started to go quite well. And also I was starting to see there's some room here to develop this, to make this more, to craft this more so that these make more sense, or I can go more in depth on things, or even to challenge myself. Get a topic I don't know a lot about, but is interesting at the moment, read up on it, think about it a lot, try and draw in some analogies, and then see if I can express that in something meaningful. So I'm not just taking the information everyone knows and saying something that's like a vaguely out there opinion anyway, trying to craft it into my own perspective again, to see how I can take my perspective and my view on the world, which is changing as well as the videos go along, and push this information in there and see what comes out the other end. So actually, in doing the series and in doing the channel, I've broken a lot of the rules, which is something I've done throughout my career. Maybe one day I'll talk about this. But just as in other areas, I broke a lot of rules, even in Thorin's Thoughts I did. So people will tell you, if you're going to do videos, especially vlogs, make them short, make them really concise, make them about one point, get the point out there, in and out, bing, bam, bam, wham, bam, thank you, man, bish, bash, bosh, and you're out, and then that's it. People have short attention spans, they don't want to watch a lot, and you know what? You better use a lot of graphics to keep their attention. You better, it better look presented very well, edited very slickly. You'll notice most people who do vlogs have these cuts constantly along, where they might even retake a couple of segments. Now think about the way I do it. In terms of just the general thoughts, a lot of them are 30, 40 minutes. They're fairly long for vlogs in that sense. There's very few edits. In fact, by default, there's no edits. I only tend to edit if something goes like really wrong, like someone knocks on the door or something, I have to go answer it, or I have to put something on the back of the video or the front of the video. That's why I even incorporated the alpha draft thing. They originally wanted to give me like a video to play. I said, no, I'll say it. And you know what? I'll find different ways to say it, and I'll make it a part of the video so it'll see my perspective on that to a sense. I added that in. I get to go on tangents. I don't try to be concise at all because this isn't a concise medium. I'm trying to give you my thoughts and then explain why and how I think that way, and then draw in other aspects that you might not have thought of because you're not me. You haven't had the same life experiences as me, read the same books I have, talked to the same people, seen things happen in the past. It's not about just getting to very simple information. This isn't a news service. I'm not a reporter just reporting some... and today at 1614, the rebels began shelling the thing, and we've got a quote from our expert on the ground here in Kosovo. Whatever. I made that up. Kosovo. Whatever. Kosovo, obviously. You go to that person. No, it's not about that. I go on tangents. I go as deep as I want on topics. If I think a topic's particularly interesting, I'll keep going down a hole this way and keep taking the left turn and the right turn, taking all these forks and going off a million miles away if I want to, and go in depth as I want to be. Because it's my medium. I can talk here as one, and it's for people who want to read that and see that kind of stuff. If they don't, they're welcome to click off the video anytime they please. It's not a problem for me. I bring in esoteric philosophical material again. People will tell you, no one wants to hear about that, mate. That's too out there. It's too niche. It's too abstract. No, that's the point. I'm not trying to be successful. I'm not trying to be popular in that respect, as in trying to just be pure success purely. So as a result, I think those are interesting. I think they're relevant to the topic. I think sometimes abstraction is useful. In fact, I actually think as a general... I'll do a very small tangent on this. I actually think metaphor, language itself, is all metaphor. Even the letters, the words, they are metaphors for something else. The way thought is constructed and a way of expressing that thought through these symbols to other people. So actually, metaphor is the most important concept in the history of communication and human thought. So as a result, to me, bringing in analogies and metaphors and other components of how to think and how to express yourself in language is essential. Now, people want to tell you these are facts and this is what happened and this is the truth and all this. That's because they have their own agenda when they're doing that. So to me, it is important to make analogies and to have metaphors and to have all these things to better visualize and explain the things you're talking about, or spark off thoughts in other people's minds where they can get these connection points. Because to me, the concept is, if you say something in one way, unless the person's followed all the aspects coming along before and they understand where you're going and what you're doing there, they often can't follow you there. So if you say, right, here's one way to do it, but here's another way and here's another way, and we're all going to get to a similar place at the end. Now, all these bridges, as it were, are open to get the person across the river. It's not just this one bridge that if they don't have entry to, they can't get across. They can go all these other ways, or they can come from reverse. They can start at the position where, oh, I know what he's talking about there. Oh, but that's how he got to it. And they come back through a different way. And the analogies work on multiple levels as a result, because it works on this level and this one, and then the reference point between it and the implication of them. And this is what's great about it. You can get, it's better communication, even though it seems like it's longer and less economical. Obviously it is, but I think it's more effective in certain ways of having a certain effect upon the viewer. Likewise, another rule I break, I cite a lot of historical details that other people weren't around for. Thing is, I know from my own experiences, if something's interesting, you want to know about that stuff. You want to start to piece it together, even if you don't have all the information now, and see, right, if he keeps connecting to that. That's one of the things that makes the Game of Thrones books very interesting. For anyone who hasn't read the books and just watched the TV show, even though people always say, oh, the book's better for everything, the reason why the books are better in some ways, I'd say overall they're better, but they're different, is that they're shown from this perspective where it's from a person's point of view. It's from within their mind and how they're thinking. Well, it's not entirely, it's not first person, but third person, but you get some of their thoughts and the way they're feeling. And so as each chapter's told, it's different people saying it. But here's the interesting thing on top of that, is that at different points in the books, they constantly are referencing things from the past or other people, or this is the cousin of this person, so that then when you meet those people, whereas in the show, you're just introduced to someone, and sometimes you're like, who the fuck is this guy? I don't even know who that is. Like, I vaguely remember you once referencing that. They've been part of the background ambience and noise and referenced here and there, and that even their absence almost meant something, that then when they're introduced, you kind of have a sense of who they are and what they're supposed to be. But then you'll have the interesting effect of, oh, they're a bit different from what I'd imagined before, and something like that. That's something that I try to do with the historical soup that I build up of connecting all these details, so that then as you watch more and more of my videos, as you're getting attuned to me and my frequency of who I am and what I've experienced, etc., now you're seeing all these connections. The connections are firing for you, and we've built up an internal map for you within your landscape of what's going on in your mind when you think about these things and how you model esports. So the point is, the reason I broke a lot of these rules, and the reason why I think it's been successful, is because I've never been trying to be popular. I'm not trying to be the person with the most YouTube subscribers or have the most views on my YouTube videos. Now, I am trying to position my work, because I've also studied the industry and how to promote things and publish things, within the niche of what I'm trying to do, once I've got all the things in place, this is how I want to do it, what I want to do, I then do think about, and what way will I publish it? What way should I structure something? How should I split videos apart? Which topic should I do in a certain time or a certain month? I do put some thought into that, but that's after the fact. It never compromises the content of what I'm doing or the way I'm trying to craft it or what I think's important about it. I don't do stuff like that just in terms of the success. But what title you give to something, or when you publish it, or which topics you choose to do at certain times. These are aspects. So within all of esports, the people who are going to watch my stuff's a niche. But as long as esports is big enough, the niche can be big enough where I don't have to try anything extra or sell out or compromise in a certain sense. I can make it the way I want it to be, but it can be successful on its own rights. And the reason I set it up, as I referenced before, so that the video initially wasn't making much money, but it didn't matter. I was making my whole income from CSGO events and from my written work, my freelance, which is where I still make a lot of my money. But now it's gotten so that, amazingly, I didn't know this had happened. In fact, I certainly didn't. I wouldn't have bet upon it. The video stuff's gotten successful enough in its own right that's doing pretty decently. It's getting me some good money, actually. So that's nice in its own way. And as a result, I don't see any reason to stop in that sense. I don't have any plans to stop doing Thorin's Thoughts or this YouTube channel in general. I still want to follow that philosophy where all video work in general will be owned by me. There was rare instances like when I did the HTC Cloud9 League of Legends videos where I essentially sold the videos to them because they paid mad Skrilla and it was a one-off job. And also, importantly, I would have never been able to do those interviews unless I'd done it through the system where I'd gone through Cloud9, through HTC, and they'd set it all up. So in that scenario, I thought that's actually a perfectly fine scenario where I'm doing something work for hire for someone else. In general, I want to brand my stuff under my own brand and I will own my own video as I do now. So I don't have any plans to stop. I think it's pretty cool. It's quite fun to do. And now it's even rewarding financially, which is a very nice miniature bonus. It's not a big deal to me how the hits go in that sense. Things are all set up elsewhere and I do it for a different reason. I think it's interesting. Usually people have all that thing where they, I want to thank God and I want to thank my family. You know what? The only person I want to thank for these videos in this channel is me. I want to thank myself for my hard work that I did, myself for motivating myself and finding different sources to inspire me or to trigger off different thoughts. In fact, one of the ways I get a lot of my thoughts is by reading books that have nothing to do with esports. Because then when I get interact with a new idea or something innovative or a new way of thinking, when I then come back to the world of esports, sometimes it'll trigger off in my mind, it's a different way to think about esports in that way. And so in that sense, I get a lot of information from there. But so pursuing my other interests also has helped me. So thanks to me for that. Thanks to me for remaining dedicated to actually do these fucking videos. I remember there was one point where I went on this mad streak where I had like 55 days or something where I put a video out, at least one every day. And man alive, at this point in time, I had some ridiculous colds that lasted like 3 weeks, but I kept making myself get up every day because I had a quest, a mission that I wanted to do to see how long I could make this streak go to keep it going. So got to thank myself for that. Got to thank myself for producing, editing, publishing all of these. I don't have anyone who helps me with any of the videos on this channel. So yeah, thanks to me for that. If you want a sports analogy, that what actually gave me the idea to do that, or what I was reminded of when I was thinking who would I thank, was when Carmelo Anthony won an ESPN Sportsman of the Year award or something, like way back in like 2003. I think it was for college basketball where he'd won the championship in college basketball. And when he went on stage, after you thank God and all this, he did thank himself. He said, like, thanks to me because I work really hard every day in and day out. I actually think that being humble in that way is like fake when you're doing it for the purpose of, I know I'm supposed to be humble now and say that I'm not that good and everyone else did everything. I think that's kind of bullshit. Yeah, you should thank people who helped you and motivated you. That's all great. But this idea of like you have to pretend like you're crap, you're not really much of the reason why you succeeded. The people who want to hear that are plebs in the audience who don't accomplish anything in their own lives, and which if you did say, I've worked incredibly hard, I've constantly given, I've sacrificed much, so thanks to me, I've done a great job here, they'd be like, that's arrogant and egotistical, because since they're not accomplishing anything in their life, it would immediately bring up a contrast where they would realize, wait a minute, if this person's doing that, what am I doing? Am I doing anything? If I'm not, what are the implications about me? That I'm lazy, that I don't pursue things? So unfortunately, a lot of people, the reason why they'd get angry and call you arrogant in that sense is because of their own frustrations, that they're not trying to find something in their own life that they do find motivating or inspiring or interesting or an outlet or vehicle to express themselves. So they don't want to hear any of that stuff, and they want to bring people down who try to be like, he's no better than me, which is never what anyone's even saying. It's talking about yourself. So I actually think that's a valuable point to make. Again, I'm not somebody who's going to be like, in fact, all things are possible through the power of Thorin. That's how all these fucking videos came to be on this channel. The video channel exists, and why you're even watching this video right now, all 100,000 of you, actually 120,000 people now in general on the channel. Apparently, you need to get to like 1 million subscribers to get the gold one. So I would have never thought I'd get to the silver one, quite frankly. I didn't even know it existed till a few months ago. And I saw some of my favourite like ASMR creators get some of them. So I never would have thought I'd get to 100,000. Again, I wasn't doing it for that person. I wasn't trying to make money off it. I was trying to do it as a niche thing that I was interested in. If someone else is interested in it, it's the general philosophy of my work. Great. If you're not, who cares? So you have to get to 1 million subscribers to get the gold one. It does seem a bit unlikely I'm going to get to 1 million subscribers. Maybe if esports keeps getting bigger, maybe if I just keep going, I could see like 200,000 or something. I think we'll probably get there in like a few months, like 6 months or something. I don't know what the limit is. It doesn't matter ultimately. Even if it just stopped today, or even if it went down, I had half as many subscribers. Cool. Then there'll be half as many people watching the videos, and we'll just all enjoy the shit I'm doing anyway. So shout outs to Offerdraft for sponsoring my stuff and ensuring that this channel actually does make me some good money now, and I am living the Skrill life, you know. Bullshit walks, Skrill talks. That's my maybe new fake tagline. It's not really, just said it for this video. So thanks to Offerdraft, thanks to myself for making the YouTube channel and all the rest of it. If you've enjoyed it, great. Done lots of them already, over 215 Thorin's thoughts, many reflections. Plan on doing many more. I'm not going to say which ones, because you'll just have to find out when they come out. And yeah, enjoy. 100k, baby.